Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Wareham School Committee to order. It is Thursday, November 21st. This meeting is being recorded by WCTV and audio recorded by Jamie Wixton. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin our regular agenda items tonight, since we last met as a group in this room, two members of the Wareham community have passed away. Both had a real impact on Wareham and the Wareham Public Schools. Susan Gifford was a state representative for Wareham for over 20 years, and she was definitely a friend of the Wareham Public Schools. And Dr. Wayne Legue was the superintendent of schools in Wareham from 1996 to 2004, and he passed away recently as well. So I'd like to have a moment of silence for both individuals. Thank you. All right, first up on our agenda item tonight is the John and Abigail Adams recognition. So we have a few students I see in the audience and their proud parents, and we want to welcome you tonight. You are a credit to the school community. You've worked hard academically, you've achieved academic excellence, and you have won the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, which means for the public that you scored advanced in at least one of the 3 MCAS exams you had to take, and then advanced in the other 2 subjects as well, advanced or proficient in the other subjects. So that's math, ELA, and science. So again, congratulations from the Wareham School Committee. It's a credit to you and your families. So what we'd like to do is have Principal Palladino come up. He's going to read your names. We have a certificate for you that would like you to form a semicircle. The school committee will, you get to shake our hands or fist bump us or whatever you'd like to do as we recognize you. And we'll come up and we'll take a picture for WCTV and the local press as well. So if I could have school committee members form a line up here.
Yeah, same. All right, well, thank you, and as you know, these students are extremely busy, so I know a few sent their regrets they wouldn't be able to be here, so there may be a few with work or school-related activities that are keeping them away from this meeting. We'll start off with Zora Andrews. Christian Arlett, Peyton Calvin, Tegan Baptiste, I know it's here. Jacob Lincoln. Aiden Jones, Lily Hagan, Ava Ricker, Emma McWilliams, who is here. And I saw Hannah Milne come in. Evelyn Francis. Jordan Pease. Ethan Petito. Lane Potter. Rija Rakataramitra Bunting. Amber Roberts. Charlotte Roy. Felicity DeSola. Will Wixton. Xavier Zahara. And these are our Abigail Adams Scholars for 2024.
Mr. Palladino and the school committee.
Oh, hang on, let me get one of the kids first.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Big shoes today.
All right, I'll get it from Matt.
How are you? All right. Everybody looking here for a second. Parents?
Your list is nicer than mine. Mine's black and white. I couldn't say his father's name. I'm not gonna be able to say his name.
Mr. Paladino, if I get a copy of the list of names.
Of course. Just can't have my notes on the side. Gotta keep my notes.
Thank you very
All
much.
right,
That was
yeah.
an impressive read.
I've done that a few times.
And all the scholarship winners, you are more than welcome to leave the meeting right now. I know you have studying to do, obviously, but thank you very much for coming tonight. We appreciate it. And if you're welcome to stay as well, so. All right, next up on the agenda item is public participation. Is there anyone that wishes to address the committee? Seeing no one, we'll move on to good news. Who would like to share some good news in the district recently? Joyce?
I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Thornell. They do a coat drive every year, and they give out coats to kids in the town. It's just a reminder of what a generous community we live in, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you very much to him for that. And I just wanted to say that I've been lucky enough to attend a few events lately. There was a party at the middle school that I got to go to, Friendsgiving at the high school yesterday, lots of really great things happening. So send me the invitations. I want to come to the schools, so thank you.
Jeff?
I along with a lot of Wareham people, was lucky enough to go to the Elite Eight playoff game that the volleyball team had against Bourne. I don't care who won the game. We were represented incredibly well. It didn't matter what the score was. The team was diving for balls. They were great sports. I thought it was just an outstanding example of what Wareham students, and in this case, Wareham athletes, do for the reputation of our community. So kudos to the team and their coach, who has done an awesome job.
Thank you. Dr. DeAndrea?
I just wanted to say congratulations to Emma Sylvia, who is a senior at the high school and a member of the JROTC. She won the Legion of Valor Award with Bronze Cross, which is, it's the award given to the JROTC cadets who demonstrate outstanding performance, dependability, exceptional character, adherence to military discipline, and leadership ability. She was the only student in Massachusetts to receive the award, and less than 1% of JROTC cadets in the country receive it. So congratulations to her.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to our first official student representative report of the school year. We'd like to welcome Emma McWilliams to the podium, to our committee. I know you've had, speaking of volleyball commitments during the fall, so we welcome you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I have a couple things that I wanted to mention, and that starts with sports. I know we were talking about volleyball. So just some of the sports records for this season. Volleyball was 20-3, 20 wins, 3 losses, and as we mentioned, we made it into the tournament a couple rounds in, 3 rounds in. That's further than last year, so that was exciting. Boys soccer finished 3-14-1. Girls soccer finished 4-13-1. Field hockey was 1-15-1, and football is 3-7 as of right now. And winter sports will be beginning the first week of December, so I know a lot of kids are excited about that. As for clubs, I think this was kind of touched upon already, but Key Club distributed winter coats on November 16th in front of the high school, so that was a great event. And Student Council is currently working on a couple community service projects for the holidays that are coming up. National Honor Society is also holding a hygiene drive where any student can drop off hygiene items to be donated. And DECA will be holding their 3rd annual craft fair this Saturday. It'll be 10 to 3. There'll be dozens of vendors inside of the gymnasium selling their items, and DECA students have been working hard. This is a big event for them, and it helps fund their competition. The class of 2025 just had their Harlem Wizards basketball fundraiser. That was a huge success on Tuesday. We had a packed gym, and we were all very excited. The 10th Mountain Rock Band is in town for the Plymouth Thanksgiving Day Parade, and they'll be visiting Wareham tomorrow. They'll be performing live music for students and staff, and then they will be helping the concert band prepare for the winter concert with an interactive rehearsal, so that's very exciting. And Powder Puff is going to be held on November 27th. A lot of people are excited about that. Our flag football event is going to be against Old Rochester at Spillane Field at 1 p.m. Admission is $5, and it's a fundraiser for both senior classes at Old Rochester and Wareham, so that's a big event. And then just some other things that have been going on at the school. The counseling staff created a Google form that's going out to students once a month. It's called the Viking Vibe Check, and it allows students to kind of reflect on how they've been feeling, and if they need any extra support from anyone in the building, any adults, they can mention it in that form. And finally, students have been completing surveys to talk about what classes they would like to see next year at Wareham High School. They're looking forward to course selection, which is coming up in the spring. And that's all I have. I appreciate the chance to be here, so thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. B, I just want you to make sure you stay on your toes, because during the meetings, Mr. Sweat will definitely ask you for your opinion, I think, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So be
about
prepared.
to.
Yeah, well, I'm just preparing her. There we go. So the floor is yours, Jeff.
So I was recently asked, because I'm on the MIAA tennis committee, to vote on new sports, in new varsity sports. And one of the varsity sports being proposed was flag football for girls. And I wanted to know your opinion. How should I have voted if I'd had the opportunity to ask you?
I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. Anytime that you can kind of reach out and reach a bigger audience, give people more of a chance to join something they may be interested in, I think that's always a great opportunity. And I mentioned Powder Puff is coming up. That's always such a big hit with all the girls who play at the school, so I'm sure that there would be some people that were interested in that. So I think that could be a great opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma.
I have
Thank
one-
you.
Yes, sir, Brennan.
I just wanted to say thank you and you're welcome to the committee, and just know that it's really important to have a student voice on the committee, because we want to know what we can do for the students. And some of us are parents, and, like, I ask my son every day, how was school? Good. What did you learn? Stuff. So we'd like a little bit more information. If there's something that the students are concerned about, if there's anything, really, any issues at the school that we can help with, we want to know. So please be that voice, and we hope that you can be. So let us know if there's anything we can do for the students of Wareham. That's literally why we're here.
Thank you. The students appreciate it, and I appreciate it as well. So thank you.
Oh, sorry.
All right, we move up to the next agenda item, 2 pilot clubs at the high school. Mr. Palladino, do you want to present these on the poetry and the environmental club?
Yes. Which one would you want to do first?
Let's go with the environment.
Can we do poetry?
Okay.
I was hoping you were going to say poetry. I was trying to make you, just because Mr. Frieda's just a few minutes behind, and
Oh, okay.
Ms. Texera is here
Okay,
for the poetry club, so if that's okay.
sure.
All right, I was hoping you were going to say poetry. So Ms. Texera is one of our English teachers, And she may be joined by a student who's running a little late, but they have, I believe, given you documentation in regards to a brief description of the club and a roster of students who have shown initial interest, which, as we all know, will grow once the program is in place. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Texera.
Can everyone hear me okay with the mic? All right. Thank you so much for this time. So Brendan Tremblay, he's a senior. I think he may have spoken to you guys before. So he should be on his way, so we'll see if he joins us. He was going to be the student rep today. And then Emma, didn't you also express interest in the club? You were one of the names on the list. So maybe you can hop in at any point. So basically this stemmed from, as you know, last year there was some interest in a poetry elective, and I believe that was voted on in one of the meetings last year. Unfortunately, at the start of this school year, we didn't have enough students signed up for the elective at the beginning of the year. So a lot of those core students who had wanted the elective was asking if we could do a poetry club instead. And I think last year, Mr. Murray mentioned the new English teacher that wanted to teach the elective. That was me. So because of that, students came to me and asked if they could start staying after. And so I had a couple of students coming and staying after and just organically sharing their poems already and wanting to talk about it with each other. And what I thought was really cool from the teacher perspective was that we have students from all different grades. So it was really cool to see, you know, like 8th graders talking with 12th graders and them comparing their poems and learning from each other. And it was so cool to see it happen already. So when students wanted to make it official, I really wanted to support them in that however I could. So the club would basically be a weekly meeting. So students had voted, there was a Google form where they said Wednesdays after school from about 2:15 to 2:50 would be the best meeting time for them. And they would want to come, and it would be, the first half would be somewhat structured where there would be writing prompts or a presentation of different types of poems that are out there, and then students could practice with that. So this week I kind of opened my door after school on Wednesday and just said, we're not official yet, we need the vote, but if you guys want to come and learn about blackout poetry, I'll have some materials. And we had 10 students just show up at my door, and they were cutting out newspapers and book pages and already have that interest in making blackout poetry, which is one of the types that we would explore. Students also shared in the Google form that they would be interested in potentially performing their poetry. So I think it's born annually. They put together a slam poetry event, and so students said that they would love to do that as like a group field trip and potentially submit their own work. So the club would be a place for them to be able to workshop and learn, and then ultimately maybe have some more confidence in sharing their work. Was there any questions that you guys have about the club that I can answer right now?
April?
I think it's fantastic. Anything to do with writing, I'm all in. I know that when I was in high school, we didn't have a structured, separate poetry club, but they had, I know that the school has like a newspaper, so we would have like sections in it where students could submit to that. So it would be nice if there was any sort of connection between, like, you know, the kids that are on the newspaper or submit things to the district website if they were willing to share it. I think would be a huge way to also like get other people excited for what the kids are doing, but I think it's a fantastic idea.
It's ironic that you say that because I've been here long enough when we had a poetry club, and they would print 3 poems every newspaper in the third page of the newspaper. So we've had this club before, and what you said was exactly how it was. I don't want to say that was the only way they promoted it, but it was one way that they promoted it.
Yeah, we were lucky when I was growing, we had our school newspaper was an insert in the town newspaper once a month.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a separate, the Holbrook Bulldog was a separate insert in the Holbrook Sun so that you could have it like its own separate newspaper, but it was, you know, helped the community really see what the kids were doing. So maybe even partnering with, you know, Wareham Week and seeing, or CTV, and trying to get some more, you know, get the community also involved in what you guys are doing, because I think that's amazing.
And I know the Journal Club is doing that already with WCTV as well. So not to the extent you described,
Yeah.
but they have been and will be working with them throughout the year.
Very cool.
Jeff?
So I'm surprised it took this long to get the poetry club revitalized, because my favorite part of the inauguration almost 4 years ago was in fact that wonderful poet and poem that was read at that time. So to me, it was inspiring, not to me because I couldn't possibly write poetry, but I would have thought that your students would have come to you well before, 2024 to do it. So I applaud it. I think it's a wonderful form of communication, even if I can't do it myself.
Thank you.
And I can also put you in touch with a slam poet who does speak to schools and perform at schools, but also would love to work with a poetry group. So maybe we can touch base after
Please,
we vote.
yes, that would be
Okay.
wonderful.
Great. So do I have a motion to accept
So
the
moved.
poetry club?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Well,
next up.
I saw Mr. Frida slide in, so I know she had another
Okay.
commitment and was able to make it, so if it's appropriate, can we?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Frida and Lane Potter, who you met earlier. And certainly you'll be meeting her quite a few more times throughout the year. But I want to thank them both for being here. And another revitalization as well, the Environmental Club, I think kind of went by the wayside during the pandemic. And I'm really excited that these two ladies are here to bring it back, hopefully. I'll turn it over to you both.
So yeah, we had the environmental club before COVID and before I was in the high school. But it kind of like stopped after COVID. And then I was thinking last year, I kind of like started thinking about it, that this would be something I was really interested in and would want to have at the school. So I kind of reached out to Giafrida and Burial, a biology teacher at the high school, to see if they'd be interested in in advising the club. And so this year we've had a couple unofficial meetings just to see if people would be interested. And we had, I think it's 15 people have showed up to some of the meetings. And this past weekend we had a cleanup where we walked out Church Ave behind the street here, and we had I think around 10 people show up, and we each got a big bag of trash. We got a lot of trash just from that one road behind the school.
And Mr. Burial was able to pick up the trash on his truck and then deliver it back to
even
the school
better.
floor. So it was very convenient.
We'll certainly answer any questions you might have about the club.
April?
I feel like this is my high school experience all over again, which the poetry and the environmental, because those were both things that I was very heavily involved with, led me to even going to an environmental college for a year, which clearly was not my thing. But I think it's really cool. We also, I think, partnered with other schools and did area cleanups in bigger areas. But I think, is the structure just to do mostly cleanups? Are you guys going to look into having speakers come in? What is the other goals besides just kind of picking up trash for the club?
We had wanted to just kind of gain more awareness to environment, cleaning up the environment, just protecting it. Also, something Giafrida had been working on and looking into was in Woods Hole, there's a program that's now grant funded that we can go to this year potentially, where it's 3 days that you can stay and do research in Woods Hole.
At the MBL. Yeah. I don't want to, do you want me to jump in?
Sure, go ahead.
So I think another really big thing that's very important to both Mr. Burial and myself is getting kids outside as often as possible, because once you're out, it's real easy to rattle off what's around us in the environment, but when you're actually out there looking at it and digging through it, it becomes a lot more meaningful. So the cleanup we had this weekend was sort of a kickstart, because again, we were the poetry club, we were unofficial, but kids were excited to get going on doing things. And that was just a very easy, let's meet on Saturday, let's do this. But we do have some other ideas. I think once we can be official and be meeting more regularly, those ideas will probably take more concrete form.
Awesome, thank you.
Joyce?
I'd love to hear that you're going to use that connection. I know you have a connection to Woods Hole because it's such a resource and it's so close And so that's great.
It is, and can I talk about it now? I feel like I'm going on a tangent.
We
but-
probably should hold off
Okay,
until
we'll
we get
hold on.
approval.
All right.
Well,
We've got some big plans with Woods Hole, let's just put it that way. And
Yeah.
Beth is
We'll
the
tell
kind
you
of
more about it.
she's
Okay.
kind of the conduit to make it happen. But we're still working on logistics, so we don't want to ruin anything and get too far ahead of ourselves.
All right.
All right, Brennan and then Jeff.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that we love to hear is when students are so passionate about something that they, take the effort to go forward and do it. And the fact that you guys are already meeting, even without approval to do something like that, we love to hear that. Of course, we're going to support it. So we look forward to hearing good things from this club and hearing that there's a connection with Woods Hole, that, hearing that you could get to do research. We'd love to have you, once this club gets approved, we'd love to have you come back and tell us more about it and really let us know what you're doing and let us know how we can help. That's why we're here.
Jeff?
So I'm sitting here feeling guilty because when I was your age, there was no such thing as an environment club. And since I perhaps am part of a generation that should be indicted for screwing up the environment, so that's why I'm feeling guilty. And yes, I know litter is something that screams at you. My dog and I come back for walks having picked up litter almost basically every day. And when you think about what this might stimulate, long-term, maybe careers even, what do you think are the top 1 or 2 areas of the environment that you would like to focus on?
See, in the future, I want to be a teacher. That's what I want to do. And what I would like to do is maybe teach environmental science. Like, I love it, and that's what I would like to do. But if I could also, like, do research in the future, like, with environmental science, that's something I also would, like, really like to do. So I feel like kind of using this club and, like, getting to know, like, certain things and branching out and making connections, that would really, like, open things up for me.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Thank you very much. Congratulations and good luck with the club.
Can't wait to hear more.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Palladino, go anywhere. We have the French trip to Canada.
Yes, so I'd like to bring up Madame Elena, who is our French teacher, and you may recognize her or the trip because we tried to do this, and then I think, was it
And
the
then,
pandemic?
It was the pandemic, and then when we tried to postpone it, then my due date was
That's
2 weeks before.
That's right. All right, so we had all kinds of complications, but she and I are very excited about this trip because it's going to be obviously focused on our French students and having the opportunity to go to Canada in French-speaking Canada and not only speak the language, but as you saw from her presentation, they're going to have an awesome cultural experience. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and I will let her explain a little bit about the trip, whatever you want to explain, and certainly we'll answer any questions you may have.
It will be a wonderful opportunity for them to actually speak that language that they have been forced to speak in classroom. And they always have those little situations in the classroom, which I pretend that this is fake, but this is what you can have in real life. You will know this vocabulary, let's put it together. They do it every other class, at least twice every week, at least once every week. Emma is a witness. And when they go there, yes, I always tell them, you will freak out. And you will forget half of the words. But there are chaperones that are listening and giving you little tickets that you exchange by the end of the trip for the souvenirs that I buy from the souvenir stores. And if we hear you asking things, we really want to see you use that language. Number one, it's really a joy to see how they're using what they have been learning. And of course, they will be able to see Europe is quite far away, but Canada is much closer, but they can see the old Quebec, which looks like a typical old town or old city, the city centre-ville, the city center in any European old town without going too far. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for them. And I know Quebec City like my backyard because it's just lovely and it's something that resonates with me. We go with my family there just for fun very often. The trip itself, if I make it brief, if it is 20 to 24 people going, it will be about 1,000. for a person who goes. It includes 4 chaperones that are supervising the kids. And all the activities are included, all the food, but for 1 lunch is included. 1 lunch is not included because of the length of the trip, which is 3 days and 2 nights, because we will have to eat it on the go, and they will have choices of how, when, and we do it, but we are limited in time, so that's why we're doing it this way. And the hands-on activities that are included on this trip is handpicked by me. I have used the company that is listed if you want to see it later, before when I worked at different schools, so I know how they work and I know what is really popular for the kids, the hands-on activities that they're doing in the famous places that they're going to see and touching the history and experiencing the history. It is a lot of fun for them. What else can be mentioned?
We can answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the committee? Joyce?
I just want to say you make it sound so exciting. I've never been there, and now I really want to go. I remember you talking last time, I guess it was when you wanted to take the kids, that you had said you had gone there in the past, so that's great. We approved a trip to Europe with a different group. Is this at the same time?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
That's this year. This is 2026, right?
Yes.
Oh,
so the Europe
okay.
trip is June
Okay.
2025, which is coming.
Right.
And knowing this, I'm not doing it anything closer. Mine is April 2026.
Okay.
So we're not crisscrossing anything, and it is enough time for us to have some summer jobs, have enough fundraisers, everything that we want to do to save enough money for this trip. So it's not conflicting the interest, and I'm in communication with the other teacher who is doing it.
Okay, awesome. And does this company do the same thing, like the online payment thing? And
Yes.
yeah, okay, good. That's so great. All right, thank you.
Jeff?
Just out of curiosity, how does Quebec French compare to Parisian French?
Oh, from my point of view, I can clearly hear them and understand them very well, and to me, it's not a problem. But if you take a person who was born in Paris, raised in Paris, and I have some friends that went to Quebec, they refused to speak French. They wanted to speak English because they were so concerned about the accent and they're not pronouncing it right. Otherwise, it's just minor pronunciation differences.
Minor pronunciation differences.
Well, there are some curse words.
We don't need to learn
We
those.
don't need that.
Those must be the
Otherwise,
kids'
it's
favorite.
the same.
Souvenirs if you use the curse words, right?
We take the ticket away.
Hopefully, they don't hear it in the streets.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on that, but.
Otherwise, no difference.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, my brother spoke French in 2 different dialects. He went to Wareham and learned it there from Miss Rosenfield. And
Not Miss Kirby?
no, it was Miss Kerr, it was Miss Rosenfield. And he said Quebec was one that he loved French, very fluent, 2 different dialects, but Quebec, he said, was completely different. He just couldn't handle it. So I think it'd be interesting for students who have been learning French to go there and do it. So good luck.
Thank
The
you.
food is great.
It is a great
And
city.
plenty. Plentiful.
So do we have a motion to
To
accept?
approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. Merci et bonne chance.
Yes, yeah.
Well,
Kevin
3 years of
showing
French away.
off.
Show up. Yeah, with Madame Spencer? Did you?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's how old we are.
Flora was on the trip to Ecuador, Costa Rica. In fact, she was my seat on the, what do they call those things, those crazy things where you go from very high up?
Like a tram or
No, a zip line.
a zip line? Oh.
Yes, Flora and I zip lined together.
There's a giant zip line in Quebec. I was going to ask about that. But it's crazy. It goes over water.
I thought I was nuts to do it.
All right. Let's see. So now we have minutes of the meeting. So we have 4 sets of minutes from 9:19, 10:03, 10:17, 11:24. I would like to vote on these together. So do we have any questions or corrections in any of those sets of minutes so far from anyone on the committee?
I had one. To say it was trivial would be an understatement. It was, and should have been Anne, and I'm trying to find it. How about if I just let Jamie know, after the...
So it's just a minor grammatical
It was
error. yeah.
very, very minor.
April?
Mine was just in some of the ones about the budget workshop, the word co-op is spelled as coop. So it's just that's it. Other than that, motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. The minutes are approved. Now we come up to the heart of our meeting, agenda items 9 and 10. We have the annual strategic and improvement plans from the 3 schools, and then we have the budget presentation for next year's budget. So I would ask the 3 principals to come forward, and what I'd like to try to do here is balance our due diligence as committee members with efficiency and time. So I'm going to have each principal present their report in its entirety, and then we can ask questions or make comments after the report has been presented to each, after each principal presents. I'm trying to limit it to 2 comments per individual. We'll play that by ear a little bit, but just in the spirit of it, hopefully we can make this work efficiently. So I guess we'll start with the Wareham Elementary School. Dr. Chandler, if you'd like to explain what we've had a chance to look at them, but this is your chance to explain it to the public, so thank you.
Sure, most certainly. Thank you, school committee.
Well, I was
You
just
just
going to say.
start. Go ahead, Dr. DeAndrea. Without further ado.
So this whole process starts when we meet in the summer, our whole admin team, the assistant principals, department chairs, and start going over the data. And this is some of the data that we begin with. And they start looking at strengths and weaknesses and where areas they could develop goals. And then that goes off to each individual school where they bring it to their school councils and they start developing these plans. And so now you're
Is
up.
the floor mine? Thank
Floor
you,
is
school
yours.
committee. Thank you, Dr. DeAndrea. I'd like to say, first off, this plan is thanks to the administration team, the staff at Wareham Elementary School, and Wareham Elementary School Council, which we began this process. I presented some of the data, some of my initial ideas to school council. We worked through it, and this is what we've come up with. It's very just to the point of our improvements here, both curriculum, attendance, and then with special education. So I will begin with the first goal.
This is the evidence from last year.
Oh, we're going to review the evidence for last year. Okay, thank you. So, so we're going to take the evidence from last year. So let me back up. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Cote. Can you roll up to the first goal?
Yep. It's this
Okay.
one, yeah.
So, school committee, backing up last year to the school improvement plan, you know that we look at the school improvement plan over years. The school improvement plan this year is not much different from last year. This is the beginning. This is my ELA goal, and I had wanted 50% proficiency. We didn't get there. But we worked hard to try. I think that the most important evidence that what we worked for last year was putting in the Tier 1 curriculum, which was Amplify and initiating Empowering Writers again. So it's important to note that we had gone from a school without a real baseline curriculum in ELA to providing a very rich, robust curriculum of Tier 1, which was Amplify, and then putting in Empowering Writers was Dr. DeAndrea's goal. You know, writing is a big passion of his and ours, and so what we've done is put that curriculum into place. So last year what we did was just work through those curriculums, get the PD, most of it being virtual, to get that going within the classrooms. The next goal last year was within mathematics. As you can see, in mathematics, we also put in a new curriculum. So there was a lot of programmatic change at Wareham Elementary School. We initiated part of the Bridges curriculum with Math Corner. Math Corner was about just 30 minutes a day of curriculum, but it really changed the dynamic of mathematics and content area, as well as continuing with ST Math, Extra Math, and all of the other work we had done prior with Envision. So we had gone from Envision to Bridges, so really we're just trying to change, and last year was kind of the changeover to that, and we saw good results with it. We'll talk more about that in this year's plan as well. So exemplary. I always want to look at exemplars. I think that it's really important when you talk about student choice, student voice, to understand what other students are doing. It's a continuum this year, but looking at student work is so important. Kids need to see other kids' work in order to understand what it is expected of them. So we're really working on it. We show it out in the halls. I'm putting it in, I don't know if you've seen the new newsletter. We've talked about it before. S'mores. And now we're putting those exemplars in the newsletters every week. So not only the students see it, the staff sees it, but now I'm having parents look at other children's work just so we can understand what's expected. What we did was we met in grade levels, we looked exemplars, we began looking at MCAS work, really talking through what that work looks like. It's a continuum of this year. And report card structure. It was a goal because it needed to be done. I had 4 different report cards going when I opened up the new school. Mine had a different report card than Deacon's, and then with Deacon's, we had a different report card. I had report cards that had comment availability. I had report cards that didn't. I had a lot of parent feedback about it. So our job was to create uniformity within the Wareham Elementary School report cards. We had several meetings, including Bonnie LaSorsa, Robin Westberg. District-wide, we really worked through. I had a survey done for parents to get their feedback. And what they wanted was a lot of personalized commentary. There was no comments available to grade 3 and 4 for report cards, so we've put that in. So really, we've created one report card with different standards, but it looks uniform now. So we're very excited, and I want to say thank you to Robin Westbrook. She's put a lot of work into it because it does come down to her reformatting these report cards. And those were the goals and evidence of last year. Are we ready for this year?
I'm ready.
So this year is really a continuum. I have dropped the report card, although I still have some goals to that. I really, really want to put it online. Other districts have it online. It's still a goal of mine, so it's not going away, but we're working through it. Other than that, I've added special education, but you'll still see ELA and math on here. That's our job. We are a school. Our primary content areas are mathematics and English language arts. So here we are with English language arts. I've lowered a little bit of my goal, not from 50%, but to 40%. As you're aware from our MCAS meeting that we had in October, we're not really where we need to be when it comes to English language arts. Our leadership team, along with the teachers, have done a lot of work to identify why and what we need to do. It really comes down to response to text. And so we're working through it. Response to text. So being able to read it and write it and write it. They don't know how to attack it. And I will also say that we have a lot of makeup work to do by the time children get to 3rd grade. We need a lot of support when it comes to K and 1. I have to have children from the time they're in grade 1, when they're 6 years old, 48 months. In 48 months, they're writing multi-paragraph essays in May. So from grade 1, they're going in just ready to read. I have to get them ready to write multi-paragraph work, right? So 48 months. So it's just a lot of work. So we understand that. So we've got to really put the meat in those primary grades to make sure that those children can do that writing. Mathematics, it cannot be lost. I know we made a lot of gains. I spoke about this during the AMCAS time. We did. We made great gains in mathematics. It's because of our computation. We're doing a lot of great work when it comes to being in the classroom, doing a lot of computation, and I'm very excited about our automaticity. I'm excited about our independent practice at home at night, utilizing extra math, ST math. We're getting content in, but we've done a lot of analysis on this. Thank you very much, the leadership team. But geometry is an area of improvement, and what Ms. Spinar did, who was our former math department chair, assistant principal now, is recognize many standards where we failed in on the MCAS, and it's attributed to geometry. So we're going to continue this goal. We're going to look at our geometry standards and see where it is. I will say, as a former math teacher, that geometry does have a lot of language to it. There's a lot of vocabulary to geometry. I find that to be very curious. So that is a goal. Our next goal is attendance. We were flagged on it during during our review from the state about chronic absenteeism. We've been working on it. It's something that we have drawn attention to our school. We've put a lot of initiatives in place, but when it comes to chronic absenteeism, we continue to have that difficulty. So I've brought it to the attention of the leadership team. Dr. Russo has done a beautiful job of creating a pyramid and a tiered system of first tier of when it comes to teachers speaking to the parents, second tier with guidance, third tier with myself as a school principal, and then, of course, working with a court system of which we have a great relationship with. And finally, this is a special education goal. As you know, DASI has put into place a new IEP. This IEP is really it's a game changer in our school. There's a lot of work to this new individualized education plan. It's something that I need to get to know. I don't know the new IEP very well. It's a great IEP because it has student voice in it, which is something that we've always talked about. It's an opportunity, but we need to be able to be fluent in this IEP. We need to do a great job of executing this IEP, utilizing this report, and really taking it to the next level to make sure that we look like we are the premier school. Right now, Brookline is teaching us, and we're doing a great job. My team chairs have just said to me, we're working through it. We're doing a lot of PD, thanks to Ms. Fay, has set up a lot of PD with this. We're becoming fluent with it. We really need to be practiced on it. And, the measure is getting the feedback from the parents, from the students. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So I've put it into a goal because it is part of what we're doing now, and it's very different. So it's important that we highlight it and show the work that's being done to implement this new individualized education plan format.
All right, thank you. We'll
All right,
open it
at
up
this
to-
time, I'll take questions.
All right, we'll start with April.
So I know you guys put a lot of work into all of this, and I know that some of these issues are not Wareham-specific issues. They are statewide for a lot of things, especially coming out post-pandemic.
Are you unmuted, April?
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
So I know that with the chronic absenteeism, that's something that obviously we're not alone in Wareham with that as an issue. When you are communicating with the particular cohort that seems to have the most chronic absenteeism, is the issue something that should be easily resolvable? Like, what do you feel like the biggest roadblock is? Is it transportation? Is it communication? Is it, don't send your kid to school if they have the sniffles, so they're taking it very seriously post-pandemic with, spreading germs and illness. Like, where are you finding with the information when you are speaking to these families that is the biggest roadblock when, in your opinion, with elementary school kids? Because those tend to be the ones that get more excited to go to school than as they get older, because then there are other challenges as kids age. But elementary school kids are typically you know, still drinking the Kool-Aid of how exciting school can be and seeing friends and participating in fun activities. So I'm just curious what you are noticing, or is it too many things, too many subsections, or is it?
No, I think that there's just a couple. Thank you, Ms. Rossi. It's a good question. Transportation is not an issue. It has been. I'm not going to say it's not an issue. It is an issue. And I've brought it to Dr. DeAndrea's attention last year, and Dr. DeAndrea and I worked, I think, 3 small buses or vans. We've gotten vans to houses where the because of transportation issues. So transportation is not an issue because the superintendent has worked through those. Because, yes, transportation, that can be a means to the way, an excuse, so to speak. But we try to fix those areas, and we can. We have that availability. I will say that most of it is sick-related or medical-related. And as we've pointed out before, that they are excused by doctors. But there's just a lot of excuses sometimes. And that is hard to overcome as a school principal.
And I also think, to be honest with you, I put it on the parents. I mean, people are creatures of habit, and you get into a routine. And you get up and you go to school. You get up and you go to school every day. That's what you do. As soon as you start getting into the habit of not going to school, it just snowballs.
Yeah.
You got to get your kids to school every day.
Do you find that in the elementary school that there are, I know that obviously we have a big focus on social emotional health and obviously a lot of other things that, again, I think kind of were more put under a microscope post-COVID. Not necessarily that they weren't there, but they weren't as abundantly noticed, right? So do you think that you're seeing more like anxiety-related absenteeism for younger kids as opposed to in years past? Like that they're afraid to go to school, or they're anxious or worked up about the idea of going to school to the point that some parents are like, well, I'm just gonna keep you home.
I don't think that's a problem with my children.
Oh, good, okay, thank you.
Other questions? Joyce?
So I just want to say first that no matter what question I ask, please know that it's with all due respect. I'm just afraid that they're going to sound bad, and you know that that's not how I mean them, right? But when you say the words "no curriculum," that seems
No programming, no material.
worrisome to me.
I don't know if I said that, but I apologize if I did. But
Well,
we
maybe you
didn't
didn't
have
say
a,
exactly those words, but that's how I heard it.
well, we had a lot of approaches and we had a lot of skills. We didn't have a tier 1 program. We didn't. We had an older one that was from 2010 we were using. We had a 2010 version, but we hadn't had one since 2010.
Can you explain to me what, because I'm not an educator, is tier 1? Like,
So tier 1 is just all, like, instruction for all. Tier 2 is instruction for some, and tier 3 is instruction for few.
okay, thank you.
So if instruction for all, every child needs to have every standard taught to them. And tier 2 is higher intervention for children who are not quite meeting the standard, that just need an extra boost. And tier 3 are those children who need a lot of intervention using Wilson or other special education programming. So for tier 1, we had a 2010, you just voted it obsolete. We had that program that we were using. We had a National Geographic program, but it was time for us to have a new material.
Okay.
I know that we did a good job. We talked about, we had Thurston involved, and Carrie Thurston did a beautiful job in primary grades, teaching teachers how to provide skills, teaching interventions, teaching tier 2, tier 3. But we needed to focus also on tier 1.
So you talked about how some of your goals are carrying over from last year to this year because you have the same goals. So what will you do differently?
Well, if differently, I think we need to do more writing. I think we need to really attack writing. I think I need more intervention too. I really do. I think I need to look at how we're doing interventions in the early grades. You know, we need a lot of support when it comes to our primary level. And I don't quite have it. I have to be honest about that.
Well, I've heard you say that a couple of times. So when you say you need support, you don't have, what would, if you could have?
If I had a magic wand, I would have more paraprofessionals within the kindergarten classroom to make sure that those, I talk about those basic skills, making sure all their phonemic learners, letter sounds, letter recognition, sight words, all of that is done. I'd love to have every child get ready for grade 1, reading ready. At the end of grade 1, I want them reading and writing sentences. At the end of grade 2, I want them writing a paragraph. And by the end of grade 3, they should be writing multi-paragraphs. That's what my expectation is. But the reality is that I have one teacher with 21 students with 2 special educators in every grade with 175 students. You know, that's the goal, I can tell you, my school improvement plan, but I have to have the backing we have to get that done that way. It's just, I have one teacher doing it, so it's just a lot of work.
So when I was at your school council meeting, there was a discussion about, was it a red bucket?
Yes, I have it. I'm going to pass it out. Please. We do. So one of the initiatives, so we are trying.
So that's not a para, but if it was a parent
it's a volunteer.
who could come in, and it seemed
Right.
like a great.
So, exactly. Thank you, Ms. Bakayaki. So I know I don't have the para support now, so it's what else? How am I going to make students, I want to make sure that they can read. And I have a very robust school council, and I brought these goals to the school council, and we have Jackie Trecker's one of our special ed teachers from grade 1, and she said, let's bring back the Red Bucket Brigade. And what it is a volunteer system where a parent or any volunteer comes in, they pick up a red bucket, and so it's part of the school improvement plan. They pick up a red bucket, and they have all the fluency. They have everything that they need to teach a group of kids, and the list of kids are there because Jackie's put so much work into it. And so I'll pass this out to you later so you can see. But the Red Bucket Brigade, their goal is to provide phonemic awareness, decoding, encoding, and high-frequency words. They did a survey and everything. I have 5 volunteers for parents. And what Ms. Stricker and I, we just had school council yesterday. What our goal is to have a red bucket captain. I might have a blue bucket, yellow bucket, green bucket for every grade. So we have at least 5 volunteers coming in and really working with kids on whatever skills that they need. And so that's it, the red bucket.
Yeah.
It's coming back. The red bucket's coming back. And she did a training yesterday, and 5 parent volunteers came and were trained.
Oh, good.
So it's starting in grade 1, and I would really love to see it go to K and up.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I noticed, just on the ELA piece, which seems to be a major focus, and I've heard writing a lot. There's a lot of stuff about on the how or the what steps, action steps, is about PD and Amplify and empowering writers and getting used to those programs. What I don't see, and I'm wondering maybe it's just inferred, is there anything about like increasing the frequency of writing that students will be doing?
Yes.
Is that within Amplify, or is that something that you as a school leader can kind of say, we're going to do this in each grade level uniformly?
Yes. So, yes and yes. It's not within Amplify. It's within Empowering Writers.
Okay.
And I have to say, Mr. Pajoli, what Amplify does a beautiful job. It's a great reading program. It is an excellent reading program. It provides science, social studies, a lot of knowledge to it. Children have the availability to write because they have information now to write about. What we have found at Wareham Elementary School is that there's a lot of tasks with Amplify. Please create notes. Please write about this. But it doesn't give you there's no instruction of how to teach the writing piece, how to do notes, how to, write a composition. And that's how Empowering Writers is coming in. And what Empowering Writers has done is they've created a template for our teachers to, a roadmap of how to embed empowering writers with Amplify, to marry the two so that they're actually really teaching the skill of writing within the reading of Amplify. So that's happening. And that PD, we were all virtual PD this year. We've had all the PD in-house, and it's been really a game changer. It's been really wonderful. So Dea from Empowering Writers has been with us, and she's working through that piece. And when it comes to, we have on our assessment calendar writing days. Our writing prompts have been kind of ambivalent, so to speak, like write about your favorite this. Well, now our teachers have put the Amplify curriculum within it, so now that they are going to be writing about what they're learning from the knowledge of Amplify. So we're working through that. When it comes to frequency, that's within Amplify and Empowering Writers of frequency. So it is within there, but Empowering Writers is working through it, so.
And so my last question then would be, do teachers then have the opportunity by grade level to sit down with each other, look at student work, and decide what is an exemplar or what isn't?
Yes, so we meet every Tuesday. So two Tuesdays, they have grade level meetings where they meet together and work as a team. The other Tuesday is for myself, for staff meetings. And then we have a committee for the fourth Tuesday.
Okay.
So twice.
Thank you.
In a month.
Brennan?
I just had a comment. I know that with the recent vote to make the MCAS not a graduation requirement, do you guys, and this question is going to be for all of you, are you guys concerned that there's going to be less importance as far as students are concerned on MCAS, and how are you going to combat that?
Yes, because I think that there is a really misunderstanding about what that vote was. And I know it because I had some staff and parents thinking, so we don't have to do the MCAS anymore. Of course we do. It's not, I think that yes, I think that there was some confusion about what that vote meant. So we are concerned because we're thinking that some families don't think that there's relevance to the MCAS any longer.
Yeah, that's the big problem. And I'm wondering how, what do you guys, if...
But we'll still be held accountable. I guarantee you that.
What do you guys have planned to kind of keep the emphasis on the importance of MCAS?
Yeah.
Well, what I encourage is sending the message, this isn't necessarily assessment of you, it's an assessment of us. And we need to know how well we're doing in these areas. So if you can just do your best, it informs us about how we're doing and we can improve. So really, we're looking at it to improve us, not necessarily to assess you.
Yeah.
Jeff?
And approximately close to 200 children show up for kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
You do some baseline testing of these children.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect you don't, but maybe you do. If you had to group those children right at the beginning of kindergarten, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, what percentage would be in tier 1, 2, and 3? Because I know RTI failed because there were just too many kids in tier 3. So from the time you get them, could you approximate the percentages?
Sure. I probably can do 20% in tier 1, about 20% in tier 2, and the rest in tier 3.
Thank you.
Wow.
So it is an inverted pyramid.
It starts from the beginning. And that's why and it's everywhere. That's why there's such a push for universal preschool. This is because students come to us with with very little skill. Many students, not all. Some come to me reading. few, but some do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Chandler.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Wareham Middle School.
All right, Wareham Middle School, just to review briefly last year's school improvement plan. We had a goal that focused on ELA for writing. All of the different things that we did, we started with attending some DESE workshops, lots and lots of DESE workshops on writing, because DESE too saw the need that since the pandemic, there was a lack in students' writing skills. So with that, after the department chair and I attended those meetings, we then created a plan and worked with our staff on what we would do for writing. Our first task was to bring back writing conferences, which had ended at the start of the pandemic, and really working on individual students in their writing. So we always do a writing sample after summer, and then start the process of how they're improving, keeping those folders for the students, and really the kids could see at the end of the year how much they had improved. The nice part of last year was that we had a writing sample from MCAS from the previous year, so we brought that into the folder. The teacher had a conversation about that. It really created meaning for that MCAS that they had taken. This is what you were writing last year. What do you think about it? And had some open, honest communication with some students, and they were like, well, I didn't try. That's not my best writing. So we went from there. We worked from that point of view. This year, DESE decided not to give us any writing samples. Not sure why. So as you can see, with some of my evidence there, that we did have some substantial growth at certain grade levels. 11% improvement on the writing standard in grade 5, negative 1% in grade 6, and a positive 10% in grade 7. We also had a goal last year for math, and we focused specifically on constructed responses, and that is the writing piece of math. So in the olden days, word problems, but a little bit more in depth than word problems. And remember, it's on every standard in that grade level. So constructed responses was our focus, and we did see some success, not as much success as we wanted to on MCAS, but when we look at our students, we feel on their constructed responses throughout the performance-based assessments, we feel that we saw great growth. We just didn't see that growth as much as we did in ELA when we look at MCAS. We did implement Century, ST Math, and same responses using our graphic organizer for constructed responses, Rust. Social emotional climate goal focused on discipline and attendance. I did give you a lot of data. Obviously, we want kids in school. We don't want them suspended. We want them to attend regularly, and we also want the focus on learning. So when students are disruptive in class, other kids aren't learning, and they're not learning. I think you will see very good data that we have on that, and that was on that last page. And I broke it down for the last 3 years on suspension and attendance. We have improved significantly, not enough, in my opinion. So we're continuing to work on that, as you'll see in our current school improvement plan. We are staying the course. So when you talk about what are you doing different, we had some really good conversations about this, but we do feel what we're doing is making a difference. So we want to stay the course until 2006. Just 1 year is not going to make the significant change that we want to. So ELA, math, and our school climate remain the same. Of course, we're implementing new things throughout to make it better. We're analyzing NUIA and MCAS data, seeing where our weaknesses is and why are those weaknesses. When are we teaching geometry, and when are we teaching statistics and probability? Did that make a difference? Seventh grade has decided, they decided at the end of last year, before they even had the NUIA and MCAS final scores, to change up where they're teaching, what they're teaching, and they had rationale for it, and I said, go for it. So they really revamped their entire pacing guide. And then we also added a science goal this year, because science is changing the test. So 50% of MCAS this year will be different, and it will not count, they say, and 50% will be the old MCAS. And then the next year, it will completely change. And there's simulations that students will have to run. So technology has gotten more advanced, right? So now kids can do, technically, they can receive data on MCAS, and they can manipulate that data and then explain the data. So it is a different way of testing. Do we teach that way in our science and STEAM classes? We certainly do, but now it's how are they going to manipulate this on technology? So it does take specific effort and specific teaching styles. So our department chair went to Desi Trainer. She's a train the trainer. She has worked with the high school and the elementary school and is currently working with our middle school staff on that. Social emotional is remaining the same. We're working on our discipline, attendance, and really that focus on learning in the classrooms. As Dr. Chandler said, the IEP has changed. We do need to put a focus on the new IEP system. From what I can see with the new system is they're really taking data into a higher level. So a student with a disability, where are they? How are we getting them to where they need to be? Again, the difficulty is we have 180 days to make that difference. They're already behind, so how do we get to where we need to be? Questions, concerns?
April?
So I know that when you showed the evidence of the trends, especially for like the social emotional, like the disciplinary percentages,
Yeah.
and the improvement there is great. What do you find is the biggest challenge? Because I know that it's something in middle school, and it's not just, again, not isolated to Wareham Middle School.
Yeah.
I think it's that age group in general, especially, again, you know, you have the same learning goals and focuses as the elementary, because you guys said upside down pyramid. It's all just a continuation.
Yeah.
So I think that's self-explanatory in your thing. But with the discipline, and I know probably similarly with the absenteeism, but more so with like the discipline, what do you feel that some of the contributing factors to things going less is, you know, that it's kind of, again, a few years more out post-pandemic? Or is it that there are more like appropriate diagnoses for kids that might have had, you know, something else going on that was causing them to act out in a way that now it's recognized, so there are other interventions in place? Or do you?
It's a lot of hard work on my staff.
Okay.
That's the difference. A lot of hard work. A lot of consistent hard work.
No, I remember being a para in TLC classrooms in the middle school, and you know, there is definitely a lot of very caring and
Yeah.
dedicated staff in a lot of the classrooms that have, like, sometimes a little bit more of a challenging,
We work hard
population.
on placing the kids where they need to be placed if they're on an IEP or need to be on an IEP. We work hard on providing that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 interventions behaviorally, not just academically. And it's very, very, very intentional from day one.
How receptive have you found parents of the students that have a higher level of disciplinary necessity in helping you combat that in school?
A lot of them are very supportive. And when we have, I guess, a chronic discipline issue, whether it be in our TLC or it be in regular ed, really has to do with parents not supporting us. But I would say that's far and few between. So I think we're lucky in that respect.
Great, thank you.
Brennan?
I'd just like to ask, what would be the, we asked earlier about if you had a magic wand. Well, as far as from the parents and students' perspective, what would be the best thing for parents and students to do to help you implement this plan? What do you need from your students, or from families, I should say, because it's a family effort? What do you need from them
If
to
I
help
had a
this
magic
work?
wand,
How could we help?
send your kid to school every day,
That's the biggest piece?
5 days or less, absent. If I had a magic wand.
Joyce?
So in your presentation, and actually at the elementary school too, you mentioned the new IEP and the training that's involved. And so is that something that's done school, just in every school does their own thing? Or is it
I believe, Mrs. Fay had trainings last year, so with her department chairs. There was also money this summer for schools to work independently on what they thought would be the best thing to support their staff this year. My staff decided that let's get some exemplars. So we did different types of IEPs with exemplars of this is how you could. And so we did the train the trainer model. So I have 4 experts that spent the summer working on this IEP, which
Okay.
is fabulous. So when my teachers have a question, I have in-house specialists.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is that kind of what it was decided to do, so that each school?
In my school, I don't know what the other schools did with that, but initially, there was that initial training.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And a lot of my questions were answered just within your presentation. So I just want to ask, because, I'm only allowed to ask 2 questions. A lot of what you talk about is internet-based, right? You talk about kids at home and, the math programs, and I know we talked about English programs. Are we sure that all students go home and have internet? Does that ever come up?
Before, it was a huge concern of mine, but it's really not. Pre-pandemic even, we would have a lot of parents that said we don't have internet access.
Yeah.
But I rarely get that. I think
Really?
maybe twice last year, at which time I contacted technology. Whatever they worked out, they resolved the situation. So I personally don't think it's a huge issue. At least I'm not hearing from the parents this year.
There was a time when the district was giving out
Yes.
routers,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
COVID.
And
Well,
there's
it was
free,
even before
there's
COVID, I thought.
free,
Comcast.
yeah, it's
Yes.
free now, and so we were sending that out.
We had flyers from
post-pandem-
Comcast.
Yeah,
You can get-
post-pandemic.
if they
Yeah.
meet certain criteria, they can get it for free.
So I really.
So even if you know of someone who doesn't have it, you can give them the information, you can't get it for them, right? But at least we're able to give them that resource.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Jeff?
I know you've been doing this a long time. I want you to
Is
take
he
your,
calling me old?
No.
He's calling us old.
you're young compared to me, how's that? I want you to take your mind back to 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I want you to compare the student population then and now. The data says we have 50% more children on IEPs. Help me understand what has happened to our children that would make them require an individualized education plan 50% more than 15, 20 years ago. Meaning, is it the determination of what would cause an IEP to be necessary? Has that changed? Have the children themselves changed? What has changed to make these children 50% more likely to require an IEP?
I think maybe the world has changed.
I don't know what that means.
I think that, in general, I think doctors diagnose children a lot more than they have diagnosed in the past. A diagnosis of anxiety can get you an IEP, and everybody has anxiety. I think a lot of excuses are made for children nowadays. I think that we're not as school-focused nowadays. I think sports certainly take a very high priority in a lot of people's lives. I think technology has taken over reading. And watching a TikTok video is very different than sitting down and reading a book to your child at night. So I don't think children in Wareham have changed. I had the honor of being at the High Honors Breakfast today and received many hugs from former students who are now parents. Very similar demographics when I started 30 years ago. But the world has changed.
Environment around them.
The environment
I'm
around
also going to add, I have to, I'm going to say it. An IEP or a 504 is a piece of paper. It's a plan. It has accommodations that say preferential seating. It has, these accommodations can happen without the plan. It doesn't necessarily change the child. It has got to be a whole group effort. It has to be the parents, it has to be the student, and it has to be the educator, all on board to make those changes happen. And a piece of paper doesn't necessarily excuse or change that. Those goals are there for everyone, for that child to make that change.
But going back to your earlier statement about Tier 1, Tier 2, 3, do you think that ratio of 20/20/60 was also true 15, 20 years ago?
No, I think it was different.
So
I would say it was probably
so something
50.
has changed besides just
Oh,
the
yes.
So if that's not the case, there wouldn't have been that ratio 15 or 20 years ago.
Right.
What caused that ratio to change to the 20/20/60 you referenced?
I will put it out there that I think technology has changed. I think that technology changed. I think that children, it's a blessing and a curse all at the same time, technology. But I do think that children are on their iPads a lot. I think that, I don't think that they get the one-on-one attention of the reading out. I think just the family dynamic has changed.
But I don't think it's unique to Wareham.
Oh, no.
No, it's not.
I just want to make sure we're not thinking this is just I go into credit schools throughout the state. It's an issue everyone's dealing with. I just want to make sure it's not a Wareham issue only. We're all in this together.
Oh, it's an environment. It's just the whole, and it's the whole
Wareham,
world.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yes, completely agree. And with the chair's permission, I'd love to ask Emma your reaction to what these principals have said so far about children before and now. Do you have any reaction?
I mean, I feel like you can hear a lot of things, a lot of different things on these sort of topics, and I definitely agree with what Mr. Palladino was saying, that it's not just a Wareham issue. This is just a bigger issue that you see throughout like the country, and it really is just that kind of times are changing, and I guess things like kids are kind of changing with the times. The technology is getting more advanced and changing, as you guys were saying. And it really is a different environment. I kind of agree with a lot of what was said. I think there can be plenty more said, but you guys kind of covered a big part of it, I'd say. The world is just different, and there are definitely probably more diagnoses out there. So I think things are just different, and we're seeing it kind of, not catching up might be the right way to say it, but we're seeing that effect in schools as it's affecting the kids.
Thank you.
Tracy, I just want to say, I really applaud you for the clarity in your data that you presented. The 2 and 3 years it really allows us to see a trend, which I think is the most important thing in looking at data, is what are the trends. What is the timeline on the implementation of this new IEP? What are we looking at? Like, when is that?
Full implementation this year.
Next year? Is that what it is?
This year.
Oh, this year. By the end of this year?
Every single IEP is being changed to the new IEP.
Okay.
So honestly, we need to applaud our special educators because it is a huge, huge amount of work for them. Huge. Time consuming, so time consuming, so.
And my last question gets to, when you showed the evidence from, you wanted to improve, I think it was 10% in writing expression. 2 grades nailed it, 1 didn't. At what point do you, I'm not picking on a grade here, but like, when do you look at like the cohort's history in that group versus what's happening consistently over a trend in that grade level? Is that something you?
Yeah, we did that too. And it doesn't show much difference. We always, since the dawn of day, go back 30 years, have a dip in 6th grade. And it's frustrating to me. And it doesn't matter the best teachers that we put in that grade or we move out of that grade, it's that dip. So we work hard to try to figure out that grade level.
Thank you very much. And Scott, you're up.
All right, so we'll move on to just a recap of last year. I think you're going to hear similar themes between the 3 of us. Looking at ELA MCAS, one of the things we were excited to do was we were able to bring back core academic classes in grades 8 through 10, and we were able to implement NWEA assessment. We were able to utilize some evidence-based teaching and learning, and we received a grant from DESE to start the Study Sync program, which was a great program, and we're obviously in year 2 in that program. We worked with the LAN network, a lot of acronyms here, Learning Accelerated Network, and TNTP, the New Teachers Project, who actually allowed for us not only to utilize their programs, but also to have them come in. And we actually did 4 rounds last year with people from the LAN project, where we came in and observed our staff, specifically focusing on English last year and this year. And I probably should have thanked my staff, school council, student advisory council, and our advisory reps for the work they have done, not only on last year's school improvement plan, but this year's. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention them. We'll then move on to math, where we, again, same idea. We were able to increase the number of core math classes. And, the data, we didn't reach the goals that we wanted in regards to the data, but it's really, with core math and core English, it's really a 2-year process where they're in there for 9th grade and 10th grade, getting the support that they need. In math, like we rolled out Study Sync, we're rolling out Illustrative Math, which is a new curriculum in math to supplement our math curriculum. Again, when we look at the scores, we didn't reach our goals, so you'll see this on again. We'll continue on with this as a goal. I'm excited about the fact we were able to get into 561 classrooms. This does not include the over 36 classrooms we visited with the LAN network. And I'm excited about the NWEA implementation and the illustrative math in the math department. Moving on to social and emotional. Last year, we had the ESS program for the first full year. You may remember we started the program in the middle of the previous school year, and last year was our first full year of the program. I think it really grounded our TLC program and a lot of our social and emotional students, and gave them the support they needed, and gave our staff the support they needed, especially our paraprofessionals. They did an amazing job with the paraprofessionals, and got us to a point where we felt confident enough that we could move forward with a social worker based on the structure and the systems that they put in place, and support our friends at the elementary school who needed some support in the classrooms, specifically the TLC-type classrooms there. And as you know, the ESS program has moved on to the elementary school, and hopefully in the future, they'll have the same success there that we saw in basically about 16 months of work with them. So we also, as a district, worked with Satchel Pulse, and that was has been a great resource for our students that have social and emotional support. We're still working with High Point to provide counseling for our social and emotional students. And we did see some great data in regards to the TLC program, specifically with suspension rates, with our attendance rates, and GPA improved modestly. As you've heard from my colleagues, we're always working on attendance. I wish we had just a great plan to get every kid in every single day. I like what Tracy said is, like, we need the kids in there for a minimum of 175 days. You know, we have a saying that's probably been used too many times at the high school. You have to be on the job to do the job. And if you're not in school, like, we can never replicate, no matter what grade it is, we can never replicate what goes on in a classroom at home. We have Google Classroom, you know, we have Canva, we have all these programs, but unless you're in the classroom, you're gonna miss a portion of that instruction. So it's so important that the students are in school. We've got a new saying that we've been using now. The best ability is availability, and they need to be available for instruction. We've been working on, we aligned our deans with our guidance counselors so we can have really good collaboration in regards to their caseloads. So what we have found is if the dean doesn't know, usually the guidance counselor knows what's going on. So we really trying to make sure we have a pulse on every one of our kids. We have weekly meetings with our deans, talking about attendance. We, just like everyone else does, we run attendance reports, we have conversations. We work with all kinds of different programs, with the courts, probation, and then obviously our school resource officer. I went out to more than 12 houses, knocking on doors, trying to figure out why kids weren't coming to school. Obviously very strategic. Kid has been out a lot. They happen to be out tomorrow. I might be on the road for a little bit tomorrow, knocking on doors. This year it's been a little bit better, but it's still early, so, you know, knock on wood. But we are always striving for that 95% attendance rate. Came up a few tenths short, but 94.1 on the attendance. Discipline, you know, if they're suspended, they're not in school. You know, we talk about attendance rates. Well, discipline attributes to that. And if a kid's suspended, they're marked absent. And certainly we're looking last year to decrease the suspension rate. We tried to come up with some alternatives to suspensions. We had last year, Stanford University had a vape program where if a kid got caught with a vape, we'd have them do that online, and we cut the suspension down, or maybe even put it as an in-school suspension. We utilize in-school suspension. We spend a lot of time teaching our coaches. You heard about some Tier 1 interventions. We're really trying to allow the teachers to handle what they should be handling in the classroom, and if it becomes a bigger issue, then it goes to administration, deans, et cetera. So that's kind of a recap of last year's goals. Again, you're going to hear some redundancy here. This year we combined the math and the ELA. Again, looking to improve on that. I guess I'll start with the curriculum. I'm jumping ahead, getting excited about MCAS. But most of our curriculums have not been updated since before the pandemic. I know, Joyce, you brought up, you know, curriculum earlier. And we need to make sure, first of all, we have alignment. We need to spend time on those curriculums. So we've actually created a document with all the curriculums on the document. So and they are all linked so you can access them. But more importantly, we have the dates listed as when they were last reviewed, when they last updated. And we're really hoping that we don't have a lot of snow days, Dr. DeAndrea, we're hoping for that. And we're really hoping to use a couple weeks in June to really focus on these curriculums that need the most attention this year. And then to have a plan where we're addressing 3 to 4 curriculums per year, not just as a teacher goal, but as a department goal. And I'm excited about the centralized location for that. We also in looking at failure rates, have been looking at, we have a lot of academic electives, and when a kid has 7, maybe 8 academic electives, it can be a lot. Academic courses, I should say. Some of those are core courses. And one of the things we're really trying to do is create some high-interest electives that are more hands-on. So we're looking at, we just surveyed the students. We'll be back in January with a course of study, and I hope to have, as part of our improvement plan, some really exciting hands-on type electives that are not academic-based to round out our elective offerings. We have a lot of academic-based offerings. We'll still have some of those, but hopefully a few more hands-on. Student surveys, again, we've gotten about 25% back so far. We anticipate even more coming in the next few days. And then we'll move on to MCAS, because that's what I was most excited about, is really the 8th and 10th grade math and ELA MCAS. Continuing to work with Nuia. We had a great in-service with Bonnie LaSorsa earlier this last month, and just really dissecting the early data that we have. Again, continuing to work on the Tier 1 interventions. This year, we were very lucky to receive a grant from DESE, and we're working with ASCD, which, if you're in education, that is one of the best organizations around. And they've done training with our staff online during the in-service days, and now they're coming in right after Thanksgiving, actually. They'll be coming in, and we're gonna be really working with our co-teachers and supporting them and training them, and they're gonna do some site visits here with us to work on that. We're gonna continue to work on the land network. They have already been in once. We've done, from the administrative standpoint, we've done one Zoom training last week, another one today, and we have a Zoom meeting to review our most recent observations that we've done in the English department on Tuesday. We did a round last Friday. We went around to about 7 English classrooms. So again, a lot of continuation on our goals for math and English. I hope that this social and emotional goal is met. Basically, I know you have been in conversations, we have been in conversations at these meetings about bringing back the Wareham Co-op for our students that need that support. The high school is a large setting for some students, and if some students that have social and emotional diagnosis have trouble, some of them have trouble in a large environment, and some of them can't really function the way they need to function in a smaller classroom environment, a smaller eating area in the cafeteria. Those are the things they need. And also, they can be a distraction to other students in the school, not just in the program. So I'm really hoping that we have the opportunity to bring that back for our students. As you know, it was in place prior to the pandemic. It closed before the pandemic, and it was a great option for many students, and it was, in my opinion, a great program for dropout prevention as well. So certainly looking forward to working with Dr. DeAndrea and hoping that we can get that going for our students. Obviously, there's steps that we need to make, and again, hopefully we can hit those timelines and be in a position to open it up. Obviously, it kind of takes 3 years to get the program to where it needs to be. I envision it opening up on a very small scale to start, but then, kind of like the clubs you heard about earlier, they start off small, and then when word gets out, there's opportunities to have other students go in that need that support. So that's kind of where we're at here. The cool thing about this, having the co-op, is we're all on the same campus, so when we had it open, we were able to do some very creative things, like some of the kids, when they were getting close, we'd have them come over in the afternoon and take a class, so the transition back is easier. And the transportation is here, the support from everything from the superintendent, middle school, high school, we're all on the same campus. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if we can get that opened for August of 2025. I don't think I'm ever going to take the attendance off a goal, because it's always something we're striving for, is that 95%. I'm really excited about this. If you look at the goal, it's kind of very similar to what we're doing, but we have the bottom two things on the action steps are really something that we've done that's new. And we have the implementation of the PASS program, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on my last slide for discipline. And we've implemented E-Hall Pass tardy management. We've always had E-Hall Pass since just before the pandemic, and that allows us to track who's in the hallways when, and we can put controls on how many times they can use the lab, and it really gives us excellent data on who's going out, when they're going out, and then if two students have an issue and you don't want them in the hallway at the same time, you can make sure they can't request passes to be out at the same time. So it's amazing what it does. When I was in school, when I first started, we had clipboards. Mr. Bajoli, I know you remember those clipboards, and the kids would write their names and they'd take the clipboard that probably was very dirty by the end of the year. And that's how we, really didn't keep track of kids. So this has been a great program. What's new this year is they have the tardy system. So now we're able to get instantaneous tardy reports for the week, for the term, for the month, et cetera. And we're also, we've always sent absent emails out or notices out to parents. This year, we started doing tardies as well, and I've got like a catchy little phrase that I talk about the fact that they're being tardy, that not only are they missing instruction, but when they come into the class, they're also disrupting the instruction because they're coming in after the fact. So that's worked out really well. I believe we've been able to cut those tardies down. I'm not getting too excited. We're only a term into it, but certainly at the end of the year, I think we'll have some solid data. Then I'll move on to discipline, and I'll turn your attention to the last two pieces in the action step, because those are the two new pieces. And I encourage you, if you haven't already, to click the link and take a look at this program. And Mr. Bajali, you may be familiar with this because I believe Sandwich may have access to this program in the past, and they may still be accessing it. But for years, I've been hearing about this PASS program, and it's not our night school program. It's Positive Alternatives for Student Support. And I've always thought it's a little too far away, being down the Cape. And I meet with the Cape and Islands principals every few months through Zoom, and they're always raving about this. And I'm talking about, we talk about our issues and how different schools handle it, and they always have been raving about it. So for 3 years, so finally I said, you know what, I've got to do some research on this. I keep hearing about this. So we reached out to the organization, had a Zoom, and it sounded really promising. And then I said, well, the transportation. So I reached out to Maria at Transportation and said, do we have a bus going down towards Osterville? And she said, oh yeah, we've got a bus that goes down every day. So transportation has been great. They've been willing to allow us to take 1 to 2 students as needed to the program. They do a 3-day program. The first half of the program is all therapeutic based. The second half is academic based. To date, we've had no one have to go down for a second tour, if you will. And we've gotten really good feedback. They follow up with the kids 30 days later. They follow up with our staff, our teachers, our counselors. It's been a really great program, and I'm hoping we can continue to see the success there. And then obviously, cell phone policy changes. I know it's early. We're only 1 term in, but I've had 7 staff members come up to me and said, have you seen the ineligibility report? And I said, yes, I have. I have to approve it before it goes out. There's less than 50 kids on that. And I said, yeah, the cell phone policy is really working, isn't it? Although some people have other ideas of what may be contributing to it, but I think the major contributor is the cell phones being put away, and I think that's been a game changer. So I definitely appreciate the support you gave us on that. And we're going to continue to do this. But again, with the PASS program, the kids, they are in school. So they're not marked absent. They're getting their academics, and it's not another suspension. So not only is it like, we're getting marked down for our suspensions, but they're also absent. So now, not only are they in school, but they're getting the support they need and the therapy they need. And really excited to see, when we get through the first year, what does the data show us? But so far, so good. But again, it's just the first term. Certainly entertain any questions you may have.
Who's first? Joyce?
Sure. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for putting the results column in. That was really helpful on your reports. So, and thank you for talking about the PASS program, because I think that's great. It sounds like a win-win for everyone, so.
Definitely. It's been great so far.
The co-op, I've seen it two different ways. Is it 8 to 12 or 9 to 12?
Well, I'm
Will it
hoping it's going to be 8 to 12. I don't want to speak for the superintendent, but we did look it up on DESI, and it's listed currently as 9 through 12, but I don't think that would take more than a couple of emails from the superintendent, if that's what we decide. I know we're really in the beginning stages, so I don't want to, I'm just excited that there's potential.
So it's just, when it's, sometimes it's stated as 9 to 12, is that just because the last time it was open, that's what it was? It was 9 to 12?
I'm assuming so, yes.
I know you
The
weren't here
plan
then,
was-
yeah.
The plan is 8 to 12.
8 to 12,
I think
right.
it was, I think,
Or 7 to 12.
I think why it's 9 through 12 now is because the night school is 9 through 12. When we were involved with it, I think it was almost 7 through 12.
I was going to say,
But
did middle
mostly 8th grade. It was
schoolers-
very rare, right, Tracy, that anyone in 7th grade, it was like extreme if they were in 7th grade. It was mostly, and it was a very small number of 8th graders. It was really, I'd say 93, 94% 9 through 12. And I'm sure, if I could fast forward 5 years from now, I'm sure that's the way it's going to be predominantly probably 9th and 10th grade. Because what happens is the kids mature and they figure it out in 10th and 11th, or they look at night school as a better alternative for them as well.
Right. But is there a population of students now in the 8th grade that might be students who would benefit from going there?
There's a percentage of students in every grade that could benefit from it, but it's hard to sell it when you don't have it open yet. So
Right.
what happens is, there are some kids that we know absolutely need it right away, and their parents know they need it right away, so they'd be going in there first. And then as situations come up and we have the program running, we'll get more and more students in there. I'm hoping, what I like about the co-op, as you may remember, is it has a downstairs as well. So it has potential for growth. It's not a one-room school. It has, I'm going to call it 3 classrooms upstairs and the potential for at least 2 downstairs. So we have the opportunity. I'm hoping we'll never need the downstairs, but what's nice is we're not pigeonholing ourselves in a building that we could grow out of in 3 or 4 years. But I'm hoping it's a lot easier to manage if we can keep everything upstairs. But, obviously there's a lot to do before we get to that point.
Yes, definitely. And the high failure rate in electives, I had never heard that before. I was surprised when I read
The
that.
academic electives.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not all electives, it's.
Yeah, so what's happened over the years, unfortunately with budget cuts, we cut, we have to offer X number of English 9, you've heard me say it before. So what gets cut are the electives. So what happens is there are some periods where there might only be 2 electives, and it's like, okay, which one's the lesser of 2 evil that I want to take? So they're not always as excited to take those as well. So then you have a kid in that's not excited about the class, and, so I'm really hoping we can maybe tweak this a little bit and come up with some high-interest electives. The
But I
kids,
feel like when you say that, you're always looking for high-interest classes for kids, right? We talk about that all the time. The kids are surveyed, and what do they want to take?
but I also I get caught in a predicament because I don't want to put something in the course of study that I can't offer. If I have it, I have to be able to. If I put it in the course of studies, that means we can run it. And so for instance, for years, American Sign Language has been our #1 request from students through the survey. And for years, we haven't been able to offer it. But I have a plan this year. You'll hear in January how we're going to be able to offer it this year. So I'm really excited about that. And by the way, preliminarily speaking, I'm only, I only have a small percentage of returns, but that already has 20 requests. And it's blank. They just have to put, we don't pick the ones you want. We don't want to prescribe anything. It's open-ended, and we've already got that many. So I'm excited. I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to make that happen this year. But there's other, there's other electives we could be running that we want to run.
Well, you already know how I feel about American Sign Language. I think it would be great.
Well, it's going to happen. Again, I don't want to get too, I'm going to save that for
all right,
January
we'll
when I
wait,
come in with the course of studies. But I've been able to find a plan, and I've seen it in action too, so I'm very excited about it.
All right. I don't have another question. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate this night. This is one of my favorite nights. I'm sad that the rest of your team isn't with you. It's our opportunity usually for the assistant principals and
It's
other.
it's
I'm
been
sure
a
they're
busy
not
week.
sad.
It's been a busy, well, it's been for all of us, it's been a busy week. This is probably, for most of us, our third or fourth night out, so it's, I appreciate that they weren't requested to be here, because they have been with us every night.
Well, please tell them that we miss them, or I miss them being
I will pass it along. They're probably watching right now, by the way.
Okay.
Oh, I'm good.
Jeff?
After almost 2 decades of listening to school improvement plans, you will be interested, maybe, to know I've reached a point of cognitive dissonance. There's so many things that just don't make sense. I know, anecdotally, by the way, and I suspect that Emma will agree with me, that you can get a great education in Wareham Public Schools. By the way, our valedictorian from last year is doing great at Tufts.
No surprise.
No surprise, and she feels extremely well prepared.
No surprise there either.
Exactly, because I've got over a decade of
Tennis
those
players.
types of, not just tennis players, but great kids
Yes.
who have never once come back to me and said they didn't feel well prepared.
Yeah, and we've had quite a few say they felt high school was harder than college, too.
Yes, including BSU, but that's, yes. So that's one data point. And it's not really anecdotal after many years. I've watched, using DESE numbers, academic performance decline. But your evaluations of your staff are consistently telling me that they don't need to improve. So that's a fact, and I've been observing, watching them, not by name, obviously, just numbers. So that, in a sense, doesn't make sense, unless unless I'm willing to sit here and blame the students and the parents. But that's not acceptable in most circles in education. You just don't do that. And yet, if I don't, there's cognitive dissonance. If you look at the last 20 years, we had far more students, when I say far more, we had 15 students per teacher in the early 2000s. 10 years later, we had 13. And last year, we hit probably an all-time low of 11. So how can you have declining number of students per teacher and not have the benefits of a better student-teacher ratio?
So I'd just like to hit the evaluation question first. Nowhere on the evaluation are standardized test scores.
The state actually requires SGP to be a part of it.
Okay, but on our rubric,
I'm just saying.
okay, but I'm just saying, like, that's one data point. Like, I think there's so many more aspects to teaching than the 13% of my teachers that teach a class that ties into the MCAS. So I think that's,
But, by the way, I'm
Yeah.
not sitting here saying that I believe that over the last 20 years, our staff has declined in ability. I am not sitting here at all. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting here thinking, we do have a decline in the degree to which students are prepared to learn. That
Right.
for whatever reason, they don't come to school, on average.
sure.
Not Emma, okay? Not the kids that I am so blessed to interact with,
Right.
but far too many don't come to school prepared to learn.
Right, and again, not unique to Wareham.
Nothing I'm saying is
But
unique to Wareham.
I'd like to tackle the student-to-teacher ratio piece, if I can.
Sure,
So,
with the chair's permission.
oh, please. So, I think you really need to take a walk with me someday and go past the gymnasium and see the special ed programs that we are running and the amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars we are saving the district by running these programs. For instance, I have a program that has 2 students in it. If those 2 students didn't go to school here, they'd probably cost the district $250,000 just in tuition, and you know how much transportation would cost. So now that class is great for the district, but guess what? That just brought my student-to-teacher ratio down drastically. And we could go on and on and on in these programs and look at them. And hey, these kids are Wareham kids. They should be in that high school. I have no question and no doubt about that. And I love having them there. We had a great day the other day where we had a Thanksgiving a week early because a student was aging out. And so those numbers are extremely low. The other thing that drives our numbers down as well is, and I know you remember because you were here when we negotiated that contract, my teachers in, I believe it was 2012, agreed to a new contract in which they would teach an extra class. And the idea was to lower the student-to-teacher ratio so their caseload wouldn't change, but the classroom environment would, because it would be a smaller class. So instead of teaching, say, 120 kids spread out over five classes, and they had, almost 25 kids in a class, we would now spread that out over 6 classes, and they'd have only 20 kids in each class.
But that should help academic results.
I think we've had a demographic change in town over the years.
That's my point. And by the way, if you just take that 13 to 1 and it's now 11 to 1.
Sure.
Once again, DESI data.
No, it's real.
The change in SPED population was actually quite modest from 2007 to 2024. It was dramatic from 2017 to 24. It was dramatic from 2007 to 17.
But I think you got to dig deeper than that initial number and look at the kids and the programs they're required to be in. That's the key.
You're coming back to what I said.
Yeah.
The kids are not the same.
No, but they're still awesome.
I hear you.
I love the Wareham kids. I mean, I'll fight tooth and nail for them. They're different. Look, I mean, you got one right here. She's the best. And you heard from other ones today.
But as my colleague has said many times, we're not about, even though we love having
Sure.
the Emmas, as part of our student population.
Right.
Our responsibility is the entire population.
Sure.
And we have to do well by the entire population.
Agree.
And we're really struggling to do that.
Right.
And so, after 2 decades of school improvement plans, I have said this before, but you've probably forgotten it. Everybody's probably forgotten it, which is fine. I actually believe that the educator profession has got to be the most difficult I can imagine. The pediatrician is dealing with kids who are 99.5% all exactly the same physiologically.
Sure.
Right? They wouldn't have a clue what to do with the varied kids that you have to all teach to a certain level, or else it shows up as, you failed the kid because they don't meet standards or they partially meet standards or whatever the terminology is. So as I said, it's cognitive dissonance. There are so many variables
Sure.
that you guys deal with every single day. And A, I don't know how you do it. And B, I don't know how governance, which is what we are, okay, is supposed to respond to the data that we have a responsibility to look at.
Sure.
It's, so, you'll be happy to know I'm going to shut up.
I take my 2 questions. In terms of the annex, is that something that is fluid? Can students be brought over to the annex and then earn their way back to the high school, or is this a whole program that goes over and stays there?
No,
or is it a hybrid?
Yeah, great question. We've had, we've had the back and forth. It's in more, there might be some extreme cases where they have to kind of really prove themselves quite a bit, but in most cases, just looking at it historically, when it was open, it was a student and the parent that chose to go there. And with that being said, obviously, if they choose to go over, theoretically, they left in good standing, they can come back in good standing. But most students really liked the smaller student-to-teacher ratio and the less distractions. It wasn't a hallway, 3 football fields in length. They were able to, pretty much the hallway wasn't much bigger than the length of this room. So they felt secure, they felt safe, they created great relationships with the staff, and again, yeah, they'd always have the potential to come back. We never saw it as something like they were going to be like institutionalized there. It wasn't like they were going to be there for, 3 or 4 years. In fact, I don't think we even offered when it was the last time it was open, any 11th or 12th grade classes there, because they just needed, remediation. They needed support. They needed to build their foundation so they could move on. Again, most of them came back to the high school and graduate from the high school. Some chose to go to night school, but most of them would come back. So, that's what I envision. I don't think the kids they've changed in many ways, but I think in their needs, as far as academically, socially, and emotionally, I believe that's what they need.
Okay, and you had mentioned electives, and one thing I was going to bring up, it won't be tonight, but in the future, I was watching a show weeks ago about the country of Finland and a new initiative they have in Finland, which is really centered around media literacy, propaganda, looking at news sources, really critical thinking. But every grade, they started in kindergarten through grade 12 to look at fact versus opinion as an example.
Sure.
And maybe there's an elective course in there somewhere, watching the news or looking at podcasts or looking at TikTok or whatever the different sources are, to analyze it as a group, as a class, and maybe that could be a nice pilot for down the road as a possible elective. I don't know if it's hands-on, but it's eyes and ears on.
It's non-traditional, though. That's kind of what I'm looking for, is something that's a little different.
And I know there's media literacy standards, and I'm sure that's addressed in different classes throughout the curriculum, but maybe that's something in the future we could talk about, Dr. DeAndrea, as a group, not tonight. But,
I took it in my,
so I want to thank all
Thank you.
the principals tonight for
Thank you.
presenting your reports. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do want to ask the committee, does the committee want to take a 3-minute break, or do you want to just keep plowing ahead?
Plow ahead.
Sure.
Or what?
No, we can go ahead.
Okay, no break. We will
Yeah, I like it.
march on. So we are now on the, thank you, Emma.
Bye, Emma.
The FY26 budget presentation. Now, this should look somewhat familiar because we did this.
Yeah, it's going to look very familiar. It's an abridged version of the presentation from Tuesday, November 12th. I think it was the November 12th presentation was 70 some odd slides. This is down to about 25. Is that where we're at? Around there.
Oh, we appreciate it.
My goal was 10, but ended up at 25.
We put it on your improvement plan for next year.
So what this is it's a level service, a presentation of a level service budget and what that would look like. To do that, of course, we had to make some assumptions. We applied the steps, lanes, and COLAs for all of our unions for next year. We increased the tuitions for our private and collaborative out-of-district schools by 3.67%. We increased it. That's a state number. We also added $200,000 for the annex, personnel for the annex. Okay, so we have our values in our mission statement. We can move right on. So the district part of the budget. The district part of the budget is that 2.9 million. The salaries portion of this is mostly the central office administration, superintendent, finance director, administrative assistants in central office. This includes the nurses, our tech department, facilities, fields and grounds, and our SRO. That's the bulk of it, that 1.8 million. And then there's the expenses that includes supplies and technology, copiers, phones, things of that nature. So that's the district part of the budget. So moving to the high school, this is the staffing looks like at the high school. This is the same org chart that was presented last week or the week before. Looking at enrollment at the high school, currently it's around 540 students. We're looking at about a 40 student increase to about 602 students due to the incoming, the smaller class leaving and the incoming of 170 eighth graders. So we'll see a good jump at the high school in our enrollment. The high school special ed, we're at 32%, and a very, very small number of ELL students, 3 ELL students at the high school. When looking at special ed, a common question is, what are we as a district? As a district, according to the Department of Education, currently we're 28.6%, and the state is at 20.2%, according to the Department of Ed. The state, to Mr. Sweat's point, the state, I remember not too long ago, the state was at 17%. So, I mean, it is a statewide issue, increasing. Okay. So overall, the summary of the high school is the bulk of it, $9.6 million in salaries, and then a little under $1 million in expenses for the high school is $10.5 million of the budget. Here's our staffing at the middle school. And looking at the enrollment numbers, a slight increase, but there's 443 this year, and we're looking at about 452 next year, holding steady around between 140 and 160 students per grade. Middle school, special ed, 27%, and again, ELL, 6 students at the middle school, about 1%, very small ELL population. So overall, the high school, again, the bulk of it, salaries, almost $6 million in salaries, and 600,000 or 650,000 in expenses. And so the the middle school is about $6.5 million of the budget. Elementary school, this is the staffing at the elementary school. 914 students this year. We're looking at about 937, increase of about 23 students. Again, you look, it's very consistent at each grade level, about 170 students at each grade level. Special ed at the elementary school, 27%. Most of our ELL students are at the elementary school, 26, or about 3% of the population. And then our elementary school, $11.3 million. Again, largest portion is our salaries, about $10.5 million. So this is just an overview of our ELL program. We have 30 students, as you saw. Most of those are at the elementary school. We have 2 staff that service our ELL population. It's almost $200,000 for those staff members, and then they have a supply line. So our ELL population is a little over $200,000. Transportation, we have a coordinator and a secretary, $147,000, 33 drivers, and 11 monitors. That's about $1.5 million for their salaries. Contracted bus runs, costs us about $800,000. For contracted foster and homeless, another $220,000. And then fuel, supplies, physicals, parts, things of that nature, $313,000. So we're looking at about $2.9 million for our transportation department. So if you look at, this is our total level service before offsets in each of the cost centers in the budget. So broken out, you can see that district-wide, we have about $110,000 increase, $1 million at the high school, $150,000 at the middle, $700,000 at the elementary. These other cost centers are going up and down a little bit here and there. Overall, the increase for FY26 level service over FY25 before the offsets is a little bit over $2 million. But, of course, we have offsets that we apply. Number of different areas in which we receive revenue in which we can decrease that $39 million for a level service budget. So they're listed right here, 240 grant. Circuit breaker, we're looking at about $1.5 million that will be able to reduce the budget. School nutrition grant, Title I, we use about $500,000. We have a career pathways grant that we'll be able to apply. We use money from our pre-K revolving account, which is funded through tuitions. McKinney-Vento, $100,000, and then we receive $40,000 for our plumber from the town. So our total offset's almost $3 million, $2.9 million, and after we reduce that, it's $36,792,125. That's FY26 level service budget cost that we would ask for the town for a level service budget. So after offsets, the 36 million that I just showed you, last year after the or I should say the year that we're in now, but the FY25 budget after offsets is 34,631,313. And so the increase from FY25 to FY26 is $2,160,812. And so this slide, this just shows you a different way to look at what are the parts of the budget that are mostly causing the increase. And you can see that salaries are number one. It's the major budget driver because of steps. That number alone is just the increases, steps, lanes, and COLAs that we need to apply to staff salaries. And then you can see that second is out-of-district tuitions. Tuitions and the transportation that accompany the out-of-district placements are rising significantly and are becoming increasingly more challenging for us. So those are the two major, but clearly salaries is number one. And then you can see down the line everything else that increases. So that's that little bit over $2 million before the offsets. This I wanted to share with you. These are the tuitions that we pay for our out-of-district students who go to school out of district. We do have a student at Bristol Aggie to a collaborative, which is a public school. We have 16 students budgeted, and that's about almost $1.3 million. And then tuition for our special ed students that go to a private out-of-district school, we have 21 budgeted. That's about $2.4 million. So the tuitions that we're paying, we have 38 students that go out of district, and that's $3.7 million. These are, just one thing I wanted to share is, these are grants that we're actually losing that do contribute to our increase in the budget, is a loss of revenue. And so these are our areas where we lost revenue, and the infamous ESSER money is finally gone for good. It would have been nice if it stayed, but it couldn't stay any longer. So the ESSER is gone. The IVAQ grant that we had, no longer we won't be receiving. We did receive shelter reimbursement that the state is no longer providing us. The TAG grant will run out, and the SOA grant. So those do definitely contribute to the increase of the budget. So all said and done, a level service for FY26, that $2.1 million is a 6.24% increase. The town has estimated that they will be able to provide us with almost $1.3 million, or 3.75% increase. So we will need to do the work necessary to cut $862,138 to get to that 3.75. We will continue to watch a number of things over this year. Out-of-district placements and transportation to these out-of-district is changes frequently, and it's something that it can change to save us money, it can change to cost us money. And so those are things that will definitely change over the course of the year, and we will continue to monitor. Utilities, we'll see how that goes. We always kind of base that on current numbers. We do have 4 bargaining units that we will be negotiating this year, so that definitely will impact the budget. And then, of course, student and staff needs, and those could change slightly to affect the budget. But we're gonna, the budget subcommittee is gonna meet regularly to continue to monitor the situation and look at ways to get this budget down to the 3.75%. And I think that's it, or do we, just for this informational purposes, these are the positions that have been cut over the previous, is it 2 years? So we've cut some pretty significant positions over the last 2 years. And there's really not a lot of places left to cut. So we'll do our best, of course, but I just wanted to share that with you. So that's where we are. As I said, the budget subcommittee is going to meet on a regular basis, and we'll continue to work on this. We have the public hearing on December 4th. Was that a 4 or 5? A 5. On December 5th. And so we'll continue to work to be ready for that presentation.
Any questions or comments about this presentation? April?
Not so much a question. I appreciate the breakdown of the level funding and what we've lost in terms of grants. I think that was helpful. It's not saying much, but I know at the MASC conference at the beginning of the month, one of the things that was voted on to bring to legislation at the delegate assembly was a push for MASC to help get the legislature to adjust for inflation in a lot of the funding that we do receive that has not changed. I don't know if that would obviously be in enough time to affect our budget one way or the other, but I know that that is something that did pass at the delegate assembly, and is MASC is working with legislators to try to get the Chapter 70 funds and other funds to be more appropriately aligned with the increased cost of educating students in the Commonwealth. So hopefully that something will get resolved in that sooner rather than later, but,
Yeah, I know that the inflation was capped, I think at 4.5% or 4%, and it had gone up like 6%. So that certainly could be helpful. And also, that's another thing that we'll watch, the Budget Subcommittee will watch, is Chapter 70. And that, you know, we received such a small number last year. I'm hopeful that maybe we'll see something different this year.
so one other thing that was discussed at the conference is the way that we fall, the Cape and Islands, even though we're not technically considered it, is we fall under the rural category because of transportation, and Wareham is on that list, so we fall into that. So there is some work, I think, being done to help with those districts with additional funding, especially in terms of transportation. So I'm hopeful that that might be something that we'd be able to utilize should that come to fruition also, since we qualify as a rural district because of our division through MASC, so that's hopeful.
Thank you. And we have every reason to believe that the town administrator is working with us, correct? He's been very-
terrific.
Right.
He really is super supportive. He really is. The town has been, but especially Derek Sullivan.
Okay. Jeff?
Just one of the things to keep in mind that ironically, the wealth of the town, as is calculated by the Department of Revenue and transferred into the Chapter 70 calculation, is rising. Both our property values are rising and our incomes are rising. And that is hurting significantly the amount we get through Chapter 70. It may be good news if you're trying to sell your home, may be good news if you want more income, so you have more discretionary income, so you can have an easier life or a higher standard of living, but it really does hurt the town, school district specifically. It may be hard to believe that that's true, but that's what the data is telling the state.
I just have one quick question. The grants that are going away, are they not available anymore? Like the SOA grant? I mean, didn't we just get a bump in that last year?
Kristen had reached out, so.
Yes, so I reached out to Desi about the TAG grant and the SOA grant, and those end this year.
Oh, okay.
So that's, and those were funding portions of salaries at the high school. So that is, detrimental. ESSER ended as of September 30th.
Right.
The IVAQ grant ends as of December 30th, so we had about a half a year's salary of in there, and then that's also the bulk of that is funding the replacement of the rooftop unit at the high school. So that's an ongoing project, even though that won't be completed by December 30th, because we have entered into a contract and have done all the proper steps. We will be fine with that. The shelter reimbursement, actually, there's some breaking news on that in the last week or so. Desi announced that they would be doing the data collection for that again this year. And how that worked last year is at 3 times throughout the year, we had to make sure that we had all of the students that were living in the eligible shelters. At one point, we had 2 in Wareham. Now we just have 1, were properly marked in the student information system. So at each juncture, and the first one now they just announced is December 6th, they will start the process of reimbursing for every student that $104.89 per day per student from the beginning of school through December 6th. And we just looked at that. I looked at that with Robin, our data coordinator, today. She did the webinar yesterday and found out a lot of good information on that for us. And so right now, we had 7 that started the year, but 1 just moved out. So roughly, there's 6 students, we would say, and quick calculation. If those 6 students remain throughout the entire year, which that's I wouldn't count on that, but just if they did, that would be $113,281. So When we did this presentation, up until probably a few days ago, we had no reason to believe that any of that 160,000 would be coming back. The question that I'm not sure of, though, is that those funds are based on the students last year. And Desi said you can carry those over up to a year. So that's what we opted to do, to carry them into this year's budget to offset. What I don't know is, if I haven't heard yet, whether the funds that we get this year, if we have to spend it this year, or we can use it going into next year. So either way, you know, it's a little something. We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
This is basically a math statement, which I'm going to literally hope you'll disagree with. When I look at this from a purely mathematical, objective, perhaps simplistic way, it just seems to me that given the $1.8+ million in salary increases, that is the vast majority of the total increase between the 2 years, we literally just have salaries rising too fast for the number of employees that we have. I mean, that's just very obvious to me. So we're going to be faced with cutting until we reach a point where the number of employees that we have, plus their annual increases, is covered by the increases that we get from town and Chapter 70. I mean, that's just an objective fact. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Yes. And so when I see the 13-to-1 ratio that we had in 2017 and the 11-to-1 we have in 2024 at the end of last year, I did a simple calculation. And the difference between 11-to-1 and 13-to-1 is literally 30 teachers. And 30 teachers, it's a gargantuan number, but 30 teachers would solve the budget problem. The problem is, what is the educational impact of 30 teachers disappearing, even though that's exactly what we had in 2017, that ratio. So I would expect the principals sitting listening to this saying, Jeff, you haven't a clue what that would mean to my school. And yet, in 2017, that's exactly what we had. So we have a fundamental problem, which is we don't have enough money for the number of staff that we feel we need. Please disagree.
Right.
You can't disagree, right? Right. I
You know, we've
understand.
heard a few things throughout the night that, first, you know, some of the things that we heard, that the education profession is very difficult and it's very complicated and there's a lot of variables. And our staff, our teachers, our paras, all of our staff, they need to be paid at a level which reflects their expertise and ability. And so
And what
that
the
is, and that's
competitive
not
market demands.
competitive, correct. And that's not uncommon to Wareham. And
No.
in our industry, in education, it is staff and people that make up, let's say, 70 to 80% of your budget. And when those contracts, everyone's salary is rising each year. And when you take that and the way that a lot of contracts, not just education, but also a lot of municipal contracts, there are maybe not so much lanes, but there are steps. So any COLA, which isn't really keeping up with inflation, is also increased by movement on the columns. So, we do have salaries that are increasing, on average 4%, 3 to 4 to 5%. And then that's where you get into trouble, because if your whole budget's increasing only a smaller percent, but 80% of it is increasing that much more. And then you add in also the real budget drivers, not just salaries, the special education, the high tuitions and transportation, and costs that they're not under our control.
Utilities.
In utilities, those have moderated, fortunately. But, when you think about that, there's not much, to your point, that once all of that increase is taken up, there's not much that's left of discretionary. You really don't have much more to cut from supplies or services. We saw, there's some increases in home tutoring, special ed home and hospital tutoring, and that's one line of the budget that we're watching closely this year, every year, it seems. Your tuitions, there's some small increase in utilities. So there's just things, of all those budget drivers, I guess you could argue that we could control salaries, but we would have to make changes that we don't necessarily want to make. Out of district tuitions, we have no control over that. But like Mr. Palladino said, those would probably be a lot higher if we didn't offer the programs that we do offer, tuition and transportation. Replacement of Chromebooks, I believe the Chromebooks were purchased with ESSER funds years ago and several years ago, and now it's time to start replacing them. So this is the result of, we replaced some this year, so now we're going to have to replace some next year. So there's that. Out of district transportation, in my report in a few minutes, you're going to hear about we're struggling with that. Utilities, we're doing pretty well with that. We talked about the special ed tutoring. We do need to replace our equipment that gets old and tired. And we do have a lot of staff that are increasing their education, which is beneficial. So those are the increases, and you can see they're just met with some, some decreases in other lines. But I wish I had the answer to that question, or I wish I could disagree with you, but, that's what the case is, unfortunately. And we're not alone. We're not alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before you do your October presentation, Jamie, did I not vote on the strategic plans, the school improvement plans?
I don't believe we vote on
No, okay, so we need to do that still. We need to accept. So can I have a motion to accept the school improvement plans from all three schools that we heard tonight?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 500. Improvement plans are passed. Thank you. All right, now we go on to the October finance report. Kristen?
Okay, thank you. So I just have a few things. I will be really brief. One thing that I did want to talk about, I did mention the special ed out-of-district transportation. Since we last spoke, in the past few weeks, we have had 6 new out-of-district transportation requests that are really have become challenging to us. We've had, in the past 2 weeks, 3 new foster students that were required to transport, 1 new homeless student, a new special ed school choice student, and a new special ed student. So those are accounting for a big increase in our out-of-district transportation. So we're trying to work that out right now. That's what I'll be working on, and I've been working with the special ed department and with Marie Ferreira, and we're just going to try to see if hopefully we can hire some drivers, we can bring some of those routes back in to save some money, or we can take a look at the routes and maybe combine some. So it's just a real joint effort. So that is challenging right now for us. Other than that, salaries, we're running a small surplus right now once we factor in some grants that we will be receiving. And out-of-district tuition, we are running a surplus right now as well, but I don't ever count on that because, as Dr. DeAndrea said, that could change. Tomorrow I could say, oh geez, I just said I had a surplus and now we're in the hole. So utilities, we talked about. I know that was a question at the last meeting, and I took a look at it, and in the first 4 months this year compared to last year, we're spending pretty much the same. We actually spent $5,000 less this year than last year. So we're doing okay with that. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is what I did talk about with the shelter reimbursement, the late breaking news that we just found out about from the state. So we'll stay tuned for that. Like I said, the max we would receive is $113,000 if all those 6 students remain. But I wouldn't count on that. But, at least it's something. Last year, DESE also announced that they would be reimbursing, not accelerating the reimbursement for transportation for students in shelters. And so I haven't heard that yet this year, so it's not additional, it's just we didn't have to wait the year to get the funds for those students. So it's nothing extra, it just helped us out in the short term. So that's all I have for this month.
Any other questions? Jeff?
So, is it accurate to say that anything in the encumbered column has not been paid?
Well, usually I would say yes. However, the financial system that we use, there's the funds remain encumbered until the warrant is actually posted. So when we pay a bill in a different financial application, as soon as that bill's entered, we would see it as expended. But in VADAR, we don't see that until the warrant posts 2 weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks down the road. So there are some in here in the encumbered column that we paid on a warrant yesterday, this week or last week. But for the most part, it is encumbered for the year. So we would see in the encumbered column, most of the time, it's purchase orders that people have said, I'm going to buy this. I have a purchase order for WB Mason for supplies for $500. Also, utilities are encumbered, estimated throughout the year, and we'll take a look and see how we did with those encumbrances once we probably get about half a year in. So pretty much coming up soon, especially, and with the heating, we really won't know, and for a few more months. Special ed tuitions, every tuition that we have a contract for, which right now is most of them, is encumbered. As soon as we have a contract, we know that student's there, that's encumbered. So I have I'm pretty confident that what we're looking at for our tuitions is what we're actually facing. We've paid, say the tuition is, $120,000. We've paid a few months, so you'd see a couple months of expended and more months as encumbered. It's a mixture, to answer your question.
Once it's paid, does the system automatically subtract it from encumbered?
It should, yes. Yes, it should,
but
yes.
not necessarily?
The only time it doesn't is if a PO is open for, we'll say, a purchase order is open for $500. The invoice comes in at $300. The system, if you close when you pay it and you say close it, it should close that out and return that $200 that was unspent into available. It doesn't always work that way.
Why?
I'm not sure. But we know that, so our bookkeepers and our staff that pay bills, once we say the warrant is posted and they know which invoices are paid, and they're keeping track manually, so they're keeping a dual system, they're keeping track manually, so they're going in and closing those POs. And we're reviewing those every month now to make sure that we don't come upon June, and all of a sudden, we think, oh geez, we did have extra money, it was all tied up. So we've got a system, and they're doing a good job of monitoring their accounts. So we've sort of have a little bit of an end around in that regard.
I can't believe in 2024 you're stuck with a system like that. That is just awful. Anyway, that is clearly not a criticism. In fact, it's your burden, and that you're forced to deal with that system. A couple of quick questions as it relates to the encumbered column. Why do we have over $50,000 encumbered in school committee contracted services?
That's the legal services. The bulk of that is legal services.
Right, but
Right.
why do you know what that number is going to be for
We
the
just
entire year?
estimated it from what we've had in the past. So we said, okay, if we've paid $50,000 in legal services, and it's our general counsel and our special education counsel. So it's usually two firms. And so what we do is we just estimate it so that when we look at that, if we look at it quickly, we don't think we have, a lot more money than we know we're gonna have to pay the lawyers, right? We know on average every month we get an invoice.
We've
So
been
this
pretty
is
frugal
just-
in the negotiations.
Yes, yes, it's, the general counsel is not the higher cost, it's the special ed counsel.
Yeah, okay.
And that's complicated, and there's a lot of times that it certainly is prudent to contact an attorney. So that is just there as a placeholder, so that, we don't think that we have, so we don't spend money that we thought we had, and we come into May and we don't.
Okay. Same is true for the $50,000 in system course reimbursements?
So those are actual purchase orders that we have out for, what happens is that when staff want to further their education, they'll, put in a request, it gets approved, and as soon as it's approved, we do a purchase order
You
for
make the
that.
assumption that they're going to complete,
Correct.
okay?
And that too, that also is monitored. I know Jamie is monitoring that closely with the, Erica, our bookkeeper, and they're looking at that and making adjustments, throughout the year, really. And we do have
Manual
more staff
adjustments.
accessing that this year, so, which is a good thing. Like I said, we have more staff accessing, and the per course was also increased slightly in the contract to keep pace with what it costs to take a course. So that's
remember that,
impacting us.
yes.
Mhm.
Substitute teachers / nurses. After 2 months, out of 10, it should be about 20% gone. The middle school is 39% gone. Is there something, even, I forget which other, one was 19, one school was 19, the middle school was 39, and the high school, I think, was 28 or 29. 39 seems extraordinary to be gone in 2 months. But it also looks like the budget's really small. Is there a rationale for why we've got 39% gone and a small budget?
I can speak to the budget aspect. I try to look at that and keep it, look at what the actuals that we faced in years past and sort of use that to predict. As for the utilization, I really can't speak to that. I'm not sure. Perhaps there's some longer-term absences that are at the middle school. Specifically, I don't
Okay.
know, but maybe there are. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All righty. Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Dr. DeAndrea, superintendent's report?
Okay, thank you. You have the superintendent's newsletter in your packet, and I'll start with ask you to approve the payroll and bill warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Thank you. And I ask that you accept a gift. We received a gift of $15,578.71 from the Foundation for Wareham Education, which was a 501c3. They lost their 501c3 status. It is now a defunct group. My understanding is that years ago, they provided support for the Wareham Public Schools. They had this balance that they gifted to us that we're going to distribute between the schools so the principals can determine the best way to use the money to support the students in their buildings. But I thank you to them for gifting this money to the schools, and I know the principals will make good use of the money. So
Motion to accept.
Second.
With thanks.
Yes.
Agreed.
I believe it's like retired Wareham educators and
Wow.
administrators, right? Pretty sure.
Very nice.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. sorry to see this group go, but thank them for their generosity.
Yes, yeah, I was sorry to see that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. April, looks like we're going to get this in tonight.
All right, well, we all know how fast I talk, so hopefully we'll get through this pretty quickly. So the Policy Review Committee met on November 13th, and these are the policies you should have gotten in your handbook and the changes that we voted to make. On the first one of the approval of handbooks, you'll see the first page of that was a recommendation that we discussed with the subcommittee, but upon further review by the superintendent, he suggested, we had voted to remove a statement in the second paragraph, and after the superintendent considered it, he restructured the sentence instead of removing the sentence. So I would ask for you to approve it with the changes, and that would be the yellow highlighted and not the struck sentence in the second part of the approval of handbooks.
Can I just ask one
Sure.
quick question, I
Sure.
promise? It says grades 9 through 12.
That was one of the adjustments to be made, was adjusting anything where it said 9 at the high school to 8.
It was changed to 8? Okay, thank you.
Anything high school related should be, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on this particular policy?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Okay, so the second policy that we reviewed was the educational research policy, and there were no changes made to this policy. So it'll be motion to accept as is.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Quick question, do we have any outstanding research at the moment?
I don't believe so. We had, yeah, we had a couple last year.
Yeah, because I'd
was the
like
year
to
before.
see the results of their research.
Right, right. We did ask them to
I
come
remember
back,
this.
right? Yeah, I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next policy was the inclement weather bus transportation. So this was a policy that is in place for if a bus stop, I believe, needs to be changed. So we updated some titles from business manager to director of finance, transportation coordinator instead of director. We updated that there was separate stops for Minot, for Deaconess. We updated that to Wareham Elementary School, and that communication, that it would be provided by the district. Those were the changes that were made. So we would vote for this policy to be approved as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
Okay, so the next one was for movies and films in the classroom, and this one is just adjusting that anything, especially looking for towards, like, more towards the high school, that anything that is PGR has possibly, objectionable content will require parental notification. Otherwise, there were no changes to this policy.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained,
The last policy.
500.
Sorry. Last policy was disposal of obsolete equipment. Changed the title to school property, because it doesn't just include equipment, and added the word textbooks. And that anything, obviously, that we know at several of our meetings, we get we have to vote on what is deemed obsolete. So it's just adding some clarification to that policy. So I would like a motion to accept it as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
So
That's
that
a
was
record.
that. Hey, I finished that whole policy review meeting in 24 minutes.
Good.
I am a good chair. I make it snappy. We keep it to the point.
Did you gag people like our current chair?
I do not. I do not limit them to. I do not limit them to 2 questions.
Oh, and you still did it well.
I still did it.
Oh, right
but
at the end of the meeting.
Can you do 2 questions on each agenda item?
So that's all I have for policy review.
Yes.
So I just wanted the committee to know that I met with a committee of 2. We hope to expand it to a few more, because they were both seniors. Regarding the Parks Scholarship, it was a very good meeting. Mr. Palladino also attended, as well as the 2 students. And we will meet every quarter, so that means January and then April, at which time we will go into more depth about investing. The first session was was pretty basic, but I still think they learned quite a bit. And I also established a one-on-one personal relationship with the Rockland Trust individual who's actually going to be doing the investing, which is good news, especially since our treasurer, unfortunately, is going to be retiring. We have well over $700,000 in the Park Scholarship, thanks to the fact that it continues to have interest, and we won't be paying out any scholarship money until January of next year.
Thank you for your work on that. Any other business?
Not necessarily any other business, but I just wanted to let everyone know, at the MASC conference, there are 10 divisions in MASC. We are Division 7, and I was nominated and elected to MASC leadership for Division 7. So I will hopefully, be bringing some positive recognition to our district, and hopefully get some of our amazing educators and students to participate in some things that we can share throughout the Commonwealth, some different programs and stuff, so that we can make ourselves known for all the good that we do.
Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you. All right, seeing no,
To adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 500, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.